Gavin Brooks couldn't help but notice the desperation in the voices of the engineers huddled around the glowing monitors. He'd been mopping the same spot in Mercer Dynamics Command Center for 5 minutes, listening as they struggled with the company's failing AI algorithm. With each passing moment, the $100 million defense contract slipped further away. Gavin tightened his grip on the mop handle, the familiar weight anchoring him as equations and error messages flashed across the screens. The solution was there, so obvious to him, it felt like a song he couldn't stop humming. For the first time in a run, he accelerated his way to the Essex, flexing his. "Excuse me," he finally said, his quiet voice cutting through the heated debate. "I think I might see the problem." The room fell silent as heads turned toward the middle-aged janitor in gray overalls. Jason Marlowe, the senior engineer with his immaculate button-down shirt, didn't bother hiding his irritation. "We're in the middle of something important here. Could you come back later?" Arthur, the CTO, with kind eyes and salt and pepper hair, studied Gavin's face before nodding. "Let him take a look." Gavin set his mop aside and approached the terminal with unexpected confidence. His fingers danced across the keyboard, navigating through layers of code with practiced ease. The engineers exchanged confused glances as the janitor made a simple adjustment, added 3 lines, and stepped back. "You've been trying to force the emotional variables into your existing framework," Gavin explained softly. "But emotions don't follow linear patterns. They need their own processing layer that communicates with, but doesn't integrate into your logic architecture." He pressed enter. The error messages disappeared one by one, replaced by successful test cases. The algorithm ran smoothly for the first time in weeks. "How did you?" Jason began, but was interrupted by a crisp, authoritative voice from the overhead speaker. "That's enough." It was Sloan Mercer, CEO of Mercer Dynamics, who had been silently observing through the security cameras. "I want everyone to go home except you, janitor. What's your name?" Gavin looked up at the camera. "Gavin Brooks, ma'am." "Mr. Brooks, my office. 9 a.m. tomorrow." As the speaker clicked off, Gavin quietly returned to his mop, resuming his work as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But inside, his heart pounded with a mixture of dread and long, dormant excitement. The alarm clock's gentle chime pulled Gavin from a fitful sleep at 5:30 a.m. He silenced it quickly to avoid waking the small figure curled up in the bed across their modest one-bedroom apartment. Lena, his 6-year-old daughter, slept peacefully, her honey blonde hair spread across the pillow in a tangle of curls. One small hand clutched a worn stuffed rabbit, while the other held a crayon that had left colorful marks on her fingers. Gavin watched her breathe for a moment, his chest tightening with the familiar mixture of love and grief. In sleep, Lena looked so much like her mother that sometimes it physically hurt to look at her. That pain was always overwhelmed by a fierce, protective love that had become the center of his existence. 5 years ago, Gavin had been a rising star at MIT. His research in computational mathematics, attracting attention from tech giants across the country. Then, Catherine, his college sweetheart and wife of 3 years, developed complications after Lena's birth. The doctors used terms like rare clotting disorder and unpredictable outcome. But all that mattered was that in 72 hours, Gavin became both a father and a widower. Oh. He dropped out of his PhD program, unable to balance academia with caring for a newborn. His grief consumed him, making complex algorithms seem trivial compared to keeping his daughter fed and clothed. They moved 5 times in 3 years before settling in this small apartment where the rent was affordable on a janitor's salary. "Daddy?" Lena stood in the doorway in mismatched pajamas, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Is it morning already? Hey, sunshine?" Gavin smiled, kneeling to her level. "It's still early. You should go back to sleep. I had a dream about Mommy," Lena said matter-of-factly. "She was pushing me on a swing, and I went so high I could touch the clouds." Gavin swallowed hard. "That sounds like a beautiful dream." "She looked like in the pictures," Lena continued, climbing onto Gavin's lap as he sat on the edge of the bathtub. "But her voice was different than how you do it when you tell me stories about her." "Well," Gavin said carefully, "everyone hears voices a little differently in dreams." Lena nodded seriously, accepting this explanation with a child's simple trust. Are you going to work now? Soon. But first, breakfast for my favorite artist. Want to help? In the tiny kitchen, Gavin lifted Lena onto a stool so she could help stir the pancake batter while he prepared her lunch for school. Their morning routine was a carefully choreographed dance in the limited space, punctuated by Lena's stories about her friends and the pictures she planned to draw that day. Mrs. Rodriguez said, "My drawing of our family was the best in class," Lena announced proudly. "I used the special blue crayon for your eyes." "That's wonderful, sweetheart," Gavin said, flipping a pancake. "Will you show me when I pick you up from after-school care?" "I want to make a new one first," Lena decided, with more colors. After breakfast, Gavin helped Lena dress and brush her teeth before walking her 3 blocks to Mrs. Patel's apartment. The elderly woman watched several neighborhood children before school, allowing parents with early shifts to get to work. "You look tired, Gavin," Mrs. Patel observed as Lena joined the other children in the living room. "Late night again." "The usual," he replied with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "But I have a meeting with management today, so I might be late picking her up. Is that okay?" "Of course. Lena is always welcome here," the woman assured him, her kind eyes crinkling at the corners. "Good luck with your meeting." As Gavin walked toward the bus stop, his thoughts turned to Sloan Mercer. Everyone at Mercer Dynamics knew of the formidable CEO, brilliant, demanding, and ruthlessly efficient. At 38, she had built the company from a promising startup into a tech powerhouse in less than a decade. The few times Gavin had glimpsed her in person, she had been surrounded by executives or moving purposefully through the corridors. Her tailored suits and perfectly styled blonde hair projecting an image of absolute control. What could someone like Sloan Mercer possibly want with a janitor who had overstepped his boundaries? The Mercer Dynamics headquarters rose like a gleaming monument to innovation in the heart of the city's business district. Floor-to-ceiling windows reflected the morning sun as Gavin approached the main entrance, feeling acutely out of place in his best button-down shirt and only pair of non-faded jeans. He had arrived at 8:30, allowing time to navigate the unfamiliar main lobby instead of the service entrance he typically used. "I have an appointment with Miss Mercer," he told the receptionist, expecting skepticism. "Gavin Brooks." To his surprise, the woman nodded immediately. "Mr. Brooks?" "Yes. Monsieur Mercer is expecting you. Take the executive elevator to the 25th floor." The executive elevator, with its polished wood panels and soft lighting, felt like another world compared to the service elevators Gavin usually used. As the doors opened on the 25th floor, he found himself in a minimalist reception area where a serious-looking assistant rose to meet him. "Mr. Brooks, please follow me." Sloan Mercer's office was a spacious corner room with panoramic views of the city. The furniture was sleek and modern, predominantly in shades of gray and white with occasional touches of steel blue. The woman herself stood near the windows, her back to the door as she spoke on the phone. She wore a charcoal pants suit with a pale blue blouse, her blonde hair pulled back in a precise bun. "I don't care about the political implications, Richard. I care about whether it works," she was saying. "Get me results, not excuses." She ended the call and turned, fixing Gavin with an appraising stare that made him feel like a specimen under a microscope. "Mr. Brooks," she said, her voice neutral but authoritative. "Please sit." As Gavin took a seat across from her desk, Sloan remained standing, moving to retrieve a tablet from which she began to read. Gavin Brooks, 36 years old, employed as a night shift maintenance worker for the past 5 years. Perfect attendance record, no disciplinary issues. She looked up. Before that, you were a PhD candidate at MIT specializing in computational mathematics with a focus on predictive algorithms. You had published 2 papers in prestigious journals before suddenly withdrawing from the program. Gavin's surprise must have shown on his face because Sloane's expression shifted slightly. Not quite a smile, but a fractional softening of her features. "Did you think I wouldn't investigate after what happened last night?" she asked. "I didn't think it warranted investigation," Gavin replied honestly. "I just noticed a pattern misalignment in the code structure, a pattern misalignment that our team of highly paid engineers missed for 3 weeks." Sloane sat down the tablet and finally took her seat across from him. "Why are you working as a janitor, Mr. Brooks?" The bluntness of the question caught Gavin off guard. He had prepared for anger about overstepping his role, not personal interrogation. "My circumstances changed," he said simply. "I needed stable hours and reliable health care for my daughter." "Your wife died," Sloane stated, not unkindly, but matter-of-factly. "That was in the background check too. I'm sorry for your loss." Gavin nodded once, not trusting himself to speak about Catherine in this sterile office with this woman who treated personal tragedy like another data point. "I have a proposal for you," Sloane continued. "I want you to join the development team for Project Aurora as a consultant. Your insights last night demonstrated that you have a unique perspective that could be valuable." "I don't have the credentials anymore," Gavin pointed out. "No degree, no recent publications. I don't care about credentials, I care about results." Sloane leaned forward slightly. "We'll arrange your hours to accommodate your childcare needs. You'll keep your current benefits package, but with additional compensation commensurate with your contributions." Gavin hesitated, thinking of the implications. Would I still be on the maintenance staff?" "For now." "Yes," Sloane replied. "Consider this a trial period for both of us. I need to see if what happened last night was a fluke, or if you can consistently deliver that level of insight." The arrangement was unusual, but it would mean extra income that could go into Lena's education fund. Still, Gavin had reservations. The development team might not be receptive to input from someone in my position. "Let me worry about that," Sloane said with a dismissive wave. "There's a meeting at 2 p.m. today in Conference Room C. Be there." It was clearly a dismissal, but as Gavin rose to leave, a question burned in his mind. "Why are you doing this, Ms. Mercer? It would be simpler to just take my suggestion and move on." Sloane studied him for a long moment. "Because talent is the most valuable and most wasted resource in this industry, and I don't like waste, Mr. Brooks." Conference Room C was already filled with engineers and developers when Gavin arrived that afternoon, still wearing his janitor's uniform since he'd come directly from his regular duties. Conversations died as he entered. Arthur, the CTO, was the only one who acknowledged him with a nod. "What's he doing here?" Jason Marlowe asked, making no effort to lower his voice. "Mr. Brooks will be joining us as a consultant on Project Aurora," Sloane announced as she strode into the room. "His insight was instrumental in solving our integration issue last night." "With all due respect," Jason said, straightening his already perfect tie, "a lucky guess doesn't qualify someone to consult on a 100 million project." "I don't believe in luck, Mr. Marlowe," Sloane replied coldly. "I believe in results, and right now, Mr. Brooks has delivered better results than your entire team." The meeting proceeded with a tension that was almost palpable. As the lead engineers presented their progress reports, Gavin listened attentively, occasionally making notes on the pad provided. When Arur asked for input on a particularly challenging aspect of the emotion recognition algorithm, Gavin hesitantly raised his hand. "The problem isn't in the recognition itself," he suggested quietly. "It's in how you're weighting the variables. Human emotions don't follow predictable patterns because they're influenced by memory and context. You need to build in a contextual framework that learns from historical responses." The room fell silent, and Gavin could feel Jason's glare burning into him, but Arthur was nodding thoughtfully. "That's actually a very interesting approach," the CTO admitted. "We've been so focused on the immediate input-Southwood relationship that we've neglected the temporal dimension. We can't completely overhaul our approach based on a janitor's hunch," Jason objected, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. "It's not a hunch," Gavin said more firmly this time. "It's basic human psychology applied to machine learning. Emotions are never isolated events." "I agree with Mr. Brooks," Sloane interjected. "Arthur, assign a team to explore this approach immediately. Jason, your team will continue with the current development path until we determine which yields better results." As the meeting adjourned, Gavin found himself cornered by Jason in the hallway outside. The senior engineer's face was flushed with anger. "I don't know what game you're playing," he hissed, "but this is my project, my team. I've spent years building my reputation here." I'm not playing any game, Gavin replied evenly. I'm just trying to help solve a problem. You're a janitor. Jason spat the word like an insult. Know your place and stay there. As Jason stalked away, Arthur approached with an apologetic smile. Don't mind him. Jason's brilliant but territorial. Your suggestion today was excellent, by the way. Thank you, Gavin said, genuinely appreciative of the kindness. I should get back to my regular duties now. Sloan has authorized access credentials for you, Arthur informed him, handing over a security badge. You can use the development lab on the 12th floor during your consultation hours. I've also assigned you a workstation and system access. The badge felt strangely heavy in Gavin's hand, a physical representation of a door opening to a world he'd thought closed to him forever. As he returned to his janitorial cart, he wondered if he was making a mistake by accepting Sloan's offer. The hostility from Jason was just the beginning. Straddling two worlds within the company would inevitably create tension. But then he thought of Lena, of the education fund that was far too small, of the opportunities this could create for her future. Whatever complications arose, he would handle them. For her. Over the next few weeks, Gavin settled into an exhausting but rewarding routine. His days began early, getting Lena ready for school before heading to Mercer Dynamics. From 9 to 2, he worked with the development team, offering insights that were increasingly respected by most of the group. From 3 to 11, he performed his regular maintenance duties, mopping floors and emptying trash bins in the same rooms where he had contributed ideas hours earlier. The dual role took its toll physically and emotionally. Gavin often found himself stealing cat naps in his car between shifts or drinking extra coffee to stay alert during team meetings. But there was also an undeniable satisfaction in exercising his mind again, in seeing his suggestions implemented and his equations worked into new algorithms. Arthur became an unexpected ally, often seeking Gavin out for one-on-one discussions about theoretical approaches. Jason, however, remained openly hostile, questioning every suggestion Gavin made and undermining his contributions whenever possible. One Wednesday afternoon, Gavin was surprised when Sloan Mercer herself appeared at his workstation. "Walk with me, Mr. Brooks," she said without preamble. They rode the elevator in silence to the 30th floor, the executive level that Gavin had never visited in his capacity as a janitor. Sloan led him to a large conference room where several screens displayed the latest test results for Project Aurora. Your contextual framework approach has yielded a 37% improvement in emotional recognition accuracy, she informed him, gesturing to the data. The defense contract representatives were impressed. That's good news, Gavin said, unsure why this warranted a private meeting. It is. Sloan turned to face him directly. Which is why I want to offer you a formal position on the development team full-time, with an appropriate title and salary. Evan blinked in surprise. What about my current position? You'd leave it, of course, Sloan said as if it were obvious. You're clearly overqualified for maintenance work, and dividing your attention isn't sustainable long-term. The offer was tempting, a return to the career path he'd abandoned with a salary that would solve many of his and Lena's financial challenges. But there were practical considerations. The hours would be an issue, he said slowly. My current schedule allows me to take Lena to school in the morning and arrange for after-school care only until 6. A developer position would mean longer, less predictable hours. We can be flexible, Sloan countered. You've proven your value to this project. And the healthcare benefits, Gavin pressed. Lena has asthma. Our current plan covers her medications and specialist visits without high deductibles. Sloan's brow furrowed slightly. The executive healthcare plan is comprehensive. I'm sure it would meet your needs. But would it start immediately? There can't be a gap in coverage. For a moment, Sloan seemed genuinely perplexed, as if these practical concerns were entirely foreign to her experience. These are details that can be addressed, Mr. Brooks. The important question is whether you want the position. Gavin looked out at the city skyline visible through the windows, thinking of the complicated reality of his life. I appreciate the offer, Miss Mercer, but I need to consider it carefully and review the specifics of the benefits package before making a decision. Sloan studied him with an unreadable expression. You surprised me, Mr. Brooks. Most people would jump at this opportunity without a second thought. I'm not most people, Gavin replied simply. I'm a father first, and everything else comes second. Something shifted in Sloane's eyes, not quite understanding, but perhaps a new awareness. I'll have HR prepare a detailed benefits comparison for you to review. As Gavin left the meeting, he felt both grateful for the opportunity and uneasy about the potential changes it would bring. His life had found a delicate balance that worked for Lena's needs. Disrupting that balance, even for positive reasons, required careful consideration. That evening, he picked up Lena from Mrs. Patel's apartment earlier than usual, wanting to spend extra time with her as he weighed his options. They walked to a small park near their apartment, where Lena immediately ran to the swings. "Higher, Daddy! Push me higher!" she called, her laughter carrying on the evening breeze. As Gavin pushed her swing, watching her small hands grip the chains and her hair fly out behind her, he thought about all the moments like this that he might miss with a more demanding position. The extra money would provide more opportunities for Lena, but at what cost to their daily life together? "Daddy, look!" Lena pointed excitedly as a small brown rabbit emerged from the bushes near the playground. "It's just like Mr. Flopsy." Mr. Flopsy was Lena's stuffed rabbit, her constant companion since infancy. Gavin smiled, knowing that his daughter's ability to find joy in simple connections was a quality he never wanted her to lose. "What do you think Mr. Rabbit is doing in the park?" he asked, falling into their familiar game of imagination. "He's looking for his family," Lena decided. "He got separated when they were playing hide-and-seek." "That sounds worrying. Do you think he'll find them?" Lena nodded confidently. "His daddy has super-smelling powers and will follow his trail, and his mommy can see in the dark like a superhero." Gavin's heart constricted at the casual mention of a mother. Lena had never known Catherine, but she was the idea of a mother into her stories and games with increasing frequency as she grew older. "What kind of superpowers does the baby rabbit have?" he asked, keeping his voice light. "She can jump really high and draw magic pictures that come true," Lena said, pumping her legs to keep the swing moving. Later that night, after Lena had fallen asleep, Gavin sat at their small kitchen table reviewing the benefits package HR had emailed him. The salary was more than double what he currently earned with bonuses tied to project milestones. The healthcare plan was indeed comprehensive, though there would be a 30-day waiting period before it took full effect. He could make it work. They could keep their current insurance for an extra month through Cobra, though it would be expensive. The increased salary would more than compensate in the long run, and Sloane had promised flexibility with hours, though Gavin wondered how that would actually translate in practice. As he pondered, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Your approach to the contextual framework is being implemented. Jason is taking credit. Thought you should know." Arthur warning him about Jason's tactics. Gavin sighed, rubbing his tired eyes. The politics and personality conflicts of the corporate world were part of what he'd have to navigate if he accepted the position. Was he ready to trade the straightforward nature of his current job for these complications? He glanced at the doorway to the bedroom where Lena slept peacefully. Everything he did was for her future, but he was also responsible for her present, for being the stable, available parent she needed now. The decision weighed heavily on him as he finally went to bed, sleep elusive as he turned the options over in his mind. The following Tuesday brought unexpected chaos to Mercer Dynamics. Gavin arrived for his consulting hours to find the development team in crisis mode. The latest implementation of the Aurora project had crashed catastrophically during a demonstration for military officials, a failure that could potentially cost the company the contract. "The contextual framework is fundamentally flawed," Jason was insisting to the assembled team. "We need to revert to our original approach immediately. The framework isn't the problem," Gavin interjected, reviewing the error logs on a nearby screen. The integration points were modified incorrectly. Jason turned, his expression darkening when he saw Gavin. "This is a closed meeting for actual team members. Brooks, Mr. Brooks is here at my request." Sloane's voice cut through the tension as she entered the room, "and I want to hear his assessment." Under Sloane's unwavering gaze, Gavin explained what he'd observed in the logs. The contextual triggers were hard-coded instead of being allowed to adapt dynamically. It's forcing the system to categorize emotional responses according to predetermined patterns. Exactly what we were trying to avoid. Can it be fixed? Sloane asked. Yes, but not in time for the rescheduled demonstration tomorrow, Jason argued. We need to use the stable version. The stable version that's already failed 3 internal tests, Arthur countered. That's not a viable option. I can fix it, Gavin said quietly, but I'd need full access to the codebase and at least 5 hours of uninterrupted work. Sloane made a swift decision. Do it, Arthur. Give Mr. Brooks whatever resources he needs. Jason, prepare the backup presentation in case we need it. As the room emptied, Sloane lingered, studying Gavin with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. You're certain you can deliver? I believe so, he answered honestly. The framework is sound. The implementation was compromised. Sloane nodded once. Don't make me regret this decision, Mr. Brooks. For the next 5 hours, Gavin immersed himself in the code base, tracing the integration points and reconstructing the dynamic pathways that had been altered. Around hour 3, Arthur brought him coffee and a sandwich, which Gavin barely acknowledged as he worked. By early evening, he had identified and corrected the critical errors. The system ran smoothly through a series of test scenarios, adapting its responses based on contextual cues rather than rigid categorizations. It works, Arthur confirmed after reviewing the changes. The emotional recognition accuracy is actually higher than our previous best results. Jason made these modifications deliberately, didn't he? Gavin asked, finally allowing himself to voice the suspicion that had formed as he worked. Arthur's hesitation was answer enough. I can't prove intent, he said carefully, but the changes were unlikely to be accidental. Gavin nodded, too tired to feel anger. I need to call my daughter's caretaker. I'm way past when I said I'd pick her up. Already taken care of, Sloane said from the doorway where she had apparently been listening. I had my assistant arrange for Mrs. Patel to keep your daughter overnight and take her to school tomorrow. She's been paid accordingly. Evan's initial relief quickly gave way to concern. How do you know about Mrs. Patel? I make it my business to understand the personal circumstances of key contributors to critical projects, Sloane replied matter-of-factly. You need rest before tomorrow's demonstration. There's a company apartment on the 20th floor you can use tonight. The idea of not seeing Lena until tomorrow afternoon caused a pang of guilt, but Gavin recognized the practicality of the arrangement. He was exhausted and the demonstration was scheduled for early morning. Thank you, he said, gathering his notes, but I need to call Lena first to say goodnight. It's our routine. Something flickered across Sloane's usually impassive face. Curiosity, perhaps, or puzzlement. Of course, use my office for privacy. In Sloane's immaculate office, Gavin called Mrs. Patel's number, smiling when Lena's excited voice came on the line. Daddy, Mrs. Patel says, I'm having a sleepover. We made cookies with sprinkles, and I get to sleep in the special guest room. That sounds wonderful, sunshine, Gavin said, relief washing over him at her enthusiasm. Are you being good for Mrs. Patel? Yes, and I drew you a picture of a robot with feelings. Mrs. Patel says I can put it in my backpack for tomorrow. I can't wait to see it. Gavin settled into the conversation, asking about her day and listening to her elaborate descriptions of playground adventures and art projects. It's bedtime now, though. Do you want our special good night? Yes, please, Lena said, her voice growing softer. Close your eyes, Gavin instructed gently. Imagine the biggest, softest cloud in the sky. That cloud is carrying all my love for you, floating right above your head, keeping you safe all night long. And in the morning, the sun will turn it pink and gold. Lena continued their familiar ritual. That's right. And that's how you'll know it's time to wake up and have another wonderful day. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, sunshine. Sweet dreams. As Gavin ended the call, he became aware that Sloane was standing in the doorway, her expression uncharacteristically soft. She quickly composed her features when she realized he had noticed her. The company apartment is ready whenever you are, she said briskly. I've arranged for fresh clothes to be delivered for tomorrow. The next morning brought a tense atmosphere to the Mercer Dynamics Conference Center. Military officials and government contractors filled the first two rows of seats, their expressions neutral but evaluative. Behind them sat board members and company executives with Jason positioned prominently among them, his confidence suggesting he expected, perhaps even hoped for Gavin's failure. Sloan opened the presentation with a brief overview of Project Aurora's goals, creating an AI system capable of recognizing and appropriately responding to human emotional states in high-stress environments. When she introduced Gavin as the lead architect of the contextual framework, murmurs rippled through the audience. "Many of you witnessed yesterday's technical difficulties," Sloan acknowledged directly. "Today, Mr. Brooks will demonstrate the corrected implementation and explain the underlying principles." As Gavin took his position at the podium, acutely aware of his borrowed clothes and outsider status, he felt a momentary panic. He was a janitor about to address military officials and tech executives. The absurdity of the situation threatened to overwhelm him until he spotted Arthur's encouraging nod from the side of the room. Taking a deep breath, Gavin began, not with technical specifications, but with a simple story. "My 6-year-old daughter has a stuffed rabbit named Mr. Flopsy," he said, his voice gaining strength as he spoke. "When she's happy, she carries him upright, dancing him along beside her. When she's sad, she clutches him to her chest. When she's angry, she sometimes throws him, but always retrieves him immediately with an apology." The audience shifted clearly, wondering where this was going. The point is, even a child understands that emotions create patterns of behavior, but these patterns are contextual and dynamic. The same stimulus, in this case the rabbit, is integrated into completely different behavioral responses depending on emotional state, and those responses themselves become part of the contextual framework for future emotional processing. Gavin clicked to the first technical slide, now having the audience's full attention. Project Aurora's breakthrough is that it doesn't just recognize emotional states, it understands them as part of an ongoing narrative unique to each individual. As he progressed through the demonstration, showing how the system adapted its responses based on accumulated contextual data, Gavin felt the tension in the room shift to interest and then to genuine engagement. The military officials were particularly attentive during the stress response scenarios, where the system correctly distinguished between anxiety that required intervention and anxiety that was a normal response to challenging circumstances. When the demonstration concluded with a perfect run through all test scenarios, the lead military contractor leaned forward. "Impressive recovery, Miss Mercer. The contextual adaptation capability is exactly what we've been looking for." The relief in the room was palpable as handshakes were exchanged and follow-up meetings scheduled. Sloan maintained her composed exterior, but Gavin caught the slight relaxation of her shoulders as the officials filed out. "Well done, Mr. Brooks," she said when they were alone. "The contract is secure thanks to your work." "It was a team effort," Gavin replied, uncomfortable with taking full credit. "Don't be modest. You saved this project after others nearly destroyed it." Her gaze was direct, almost challenging. "Have you considered my offer of a permanent position?" Gavin hesitated. "I'm still weighing the practical considerations for my daughter. What would make the decision easier?" Sloan asked, her tone suggesting she was used to solving problems through direct action. "Different hours, additional benefits." "It's not that simple," Gavin tried to explain. "Every change in our routine affects Lena. She's already lost one parent. Stability is important for her." Sloan frowned slightly, as if encountering a concept she couldn't immediately categorize. "I see. Well, the offer remains open. In the meantime, I'd like you to continue consulting on the project. We can maintain your current arrangement until you make a decision." As Gavin left the conference room, he felt a complex mixture of professional satisfaction and personal uncertainty. The presentation had gone better than he could have hoped, but the underlying questions about his future remained unresolved. Jason intercepted him in the hallway, his smile tight and artificial. "Quite a performance, Brooks. Enjoy your moment in the spotlight while it lasts." "I'm just doing my job, Jason," Gavin replied evenly. "Both of my jobs, actually. That's the problem, isn't it?" Jason's voice dropped to a near whisper. "You don't belong in either world. Not really. It's only a matter of time before everyone realizes that." Before Gavin could respond, Arthur appeared, deliberately positioning himself between the two men. "The team is waiting for your input on the next phase, Jason," he said pointedly. "And Gavin, Sloan asked me to give you this." He handed Gavin a company cell phone. "For project communications," Arthur explained after Jason had stalked away. "And also because Sloan wants you accessible without going through the main switchboard." The phone was another tether to a world Gavin wasn't sure he wanted to fully re-enter, but he accepted it with a nod of thanks, his thoughts already turning to Lena and his eagerness to see her after their night apart. That afternoon, when he picked Lena up from school, her face lit up with excitement as she ran to him. "Daddy, I had a sleepover. And look!" She thrust a colorful drawing toward him. "I made a robot with feelings. See the happy face and the sad face and the surprised face." "It's beautiful, sunshine," Gavin said, kneeling to examine the picture. The robot did indeed have multiple facial expressions drawn around its boxy head, with arrows connecting each face to different colored hearts inside its chest cavity. "Mrs. Patel says robots don't have feelings," Lena informed him seriously. "But I told her that maybe they just show them differently than people do." "That's a very thoughtful idea," Gavin said, wondering at his daughter's intuitive grasp of concepts that highly educated engineers struggled to articulate. "Maybe robots need people to help them understand feelings. Like you help me understand when I have big feelings," Lena asked, slipping her small hand into his as they began walking home. Exactly like that. On a rainy Saturday afternoon, 3 weeks later, Gavin sat at their kitchen table with Lena, helping her build a model for her science fair project. A robot with LED lights that changed colors to represent different emotions. As Lena carefully colored the robot's cardboard face, there was a knock at the door. Gavin opened it to find Sloan Mercer standing in the hallway, dressed in jeans and a simple blue sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders instead of in its usual severe bun. "Miss Mercer," he said, surprised. "Is everything all right with the project?" "Everything's fine," she assured him. "And please call me Sloan. We're not at work." She hesitated, then held up a paper bag. "I brought cookies from that bakery near the office that everyone talks about. I thought Lena might like them." Before Gavin could respond, Lena appeared beside him. "Are you Mrs. Sloan from Daddy's work?" Sloan knelt down to Lena's level, something Gavin had never seen her do with anyone. "I am, and you must be Lena. Your dad talks about you all the time." "We're making a robot with feelings," Lena announced. "Do you want to help?" A smile transformed Sloan's usually serious face. "I'd love to." As the three of them sat around the small kitchen table, Gavin watched in amazement as the formidable CEO of Mercer Dynamics helped his daughter attach colored lights to a cardboard robot, listening with genuine interest to Lena's theories about machine emotions. "Green is for love," Lena explained seriously, "because love is like plants growing and making everything more alive." "That's a beautiful explanation," Sloan said, glancing briefly at Gavin with something unreadable in her eyes. "I think you understand emotions better than our entire research team." Later, after Lena had gone to bed, Gavin and Sloan sat on the small balcony of the apartment, mugs of coffee in hand. "She's extraordinary," Sloan said quietly. "You've done an amazing job with her." "I've tried," Gavin replied. "It hasn't always been easy, which is why you're hesitant about the position." It wasn't a question, but Gavin nodded anyway. "I built this life for her. Stable, predictable, secure. I'm afraid of disrupting that even for something better." "What if it could be both?" Sloan asked. "Better opportunities and stability." Gavin looked at her questioningly. "I've been thinking about our conversation about balance," Sloan continued. "About how maintenance work has clear endpoints while development is never truly finished." She set her mug down decisively. "I want to create a new position, Director of Implementation Integration, fixed hours, 9 to 5. Your job would be to bridge the gap between theoretical development and practical application. Essentially, what you've been doing as a consultant, but with proper recognition and compensation." Ellie was stunned. "You'd create an entirely new position just to accommodate my schedule. I'd create a position that fills a critical need in our organization, and I'd staff it with the person uniquely qualified to do it." Sloan corrected him. The fact that it comes with regular hours is simply an alignment of interests. As Gavin considered this unexpected offer, Sloane added softly, "People need different things to feel secure, Gavin. Lena needs routine and stability. You need to know you're providing for her future while being present for her now." She looked out at the city lights. "I've spent my life believing security came from achievement and control. But watching you and Lena, I'm beginning to think I might have been missing something important." The vulnerability in her admission created a moment of connection between them that transcended their professional relationship. For a brief instant, they were simply two people recognizing something important in each other. 3 months later, Gavin stood in his new office on the 20th floor of Mercer Dynamics, arranging framed copies of Lena's robot drawings beside his degree certificates and family photos. Through the glass wall, he could see the implementation team he now led, a diverse group of engineers and developers tasked with bridging theoretical innovation and practical application. His phone buzzed with a text from Sloane. "Dinner tonight. Lena requested my famous chocolate chip cookies for dessert." Gavin smiled, texting back a confirmation. What had begun as professional respect had evolved into friendship, and recently something more. Tentative dates while Lena was at sleepovers, long conversations after she was in bed, a growing comfort in each other's presence. He glanced at the clock. 4:30. In 30 minutes, he would pack up his work, pick up Lena from after childcare, and head home, just as he had when he was a janitor. But now, there would often be a third person joining them for dinner, helping with homework, adding her voice to bedtime stories. On his desk sat a framed drawing, Lena's latest creation. 3 figures stood hand in hand beneath a sky filled with multicolored clouds. A tall man with blue eyes, a small girl with honey blonde hair, and a woman with a smile that had once been rare but was becoming more frequent by the day. At the bottom, in a child's careful printing, "Our family," the simplest and most profound recognition that healing could come in unexpected ways, and that love, like Lena's green light, could help even the most damaged hearts grow toward wholeness again.